Welcome to Coming Home. Survive and thrive in homeschooling. Planning a pioneer weekend and checking your survival skills. In the previous episode, I interviewed Nikki about the Duke of Edinburgh Award. It had me recalling a pioneer weekend we did whilst homeschooling our children. Inspired by our ancestors, reading New Zealand history and other literature such as the Little House on the Prairie series, we decided to have a pioneer weekend. It meant paring back to the basic living standards we could cope with for a weekend and pretending we lived in a pioneer setting with no electricity and lack of other amenities. We decided to use cold water from our taps, which is modern, and our toilet. Actually, there was no choice about that, as to use a bush toilet or the old-fashioned and stinky long drop is not allowed in modern suburbia. And since a flushing toilet is non-negotiable for me, that suited me just fine. No electricity. That meant no lights, washing machine, dryer, heaters, ovens, hot showers, toaster, kettle or coffee machine. Nothing which used electricity. We had a fireplace, so we were already accustomed to using it for heat, but we also heated our water and cooked on it. It takes a lot longer, and one is judicious with hot water when it takes that long to heat it. Everyone had a basin wash that night, and not their usual shower or bath. What can you use if you don't have a barbecue or a fire? For the pioneer weekend, you could use your oven top, only for cooking and heating water. Just pretend you've got a fire. For lighting, we used torches, candles, and homemade lanterns. I didn't do any laundry that weekend, but I thought very carefully about my grandmothers who had to boil the copper each Monday morning and wash everything by hand. If we had to do that, we'd think twice about wearing clothing only once and then putting it out to be washed. We prepared simple food to cook on the top of the fire. We didn't use much prepared food from the shop, as that lessens the experience. We didn't bake our bread on the fire either. One draws the line somewhere. Opening tins of food was allowed, but not cans of meals. The point was to know what it's like to live with as little modern conveniences as possible. We cooked marshmallows over candles, read, played board games and cards until it got dark, and then by candlelight and lantern. The kids had a ball and talked about it for ages. It still pops up in conversation, even though it was years ago. If you want to use the same idea, I say go right ahead. Not only is it fun, but a hands-on way for your children to see a little bit of what life was like not so long ago, indeed is still like in many parts of the world. It's a good opportunity to teach skills such as how to start a fire, safe handling of said fire and candles. And be sure you're not using candles and gas inside the house together. It's also a chance for them to prepare and cook from scratch or to bake simple things. In these earlier times, everyone in the family worked around the property. It may occur to the children what conveniences modern life has for them and how it wasn't so long ago that their great-grandfather would have lived this pioneer lifestyle, and how much time it takes to live as compared to now. Can I suggest that you don't point this out to them? It may come across as a chance for mum or dad to moralise and tell them how lucky they are, etc., etc. I think they'll come to this realisation themselves, especially if you've read books about the olden days and seen displays at museums and historical homesteads. Modern living and civilization has a thin veneer which we take for granted, but it doesn't take too much to crack that veneer. Being able to go to the supermarket to buy your basic necessities and luxuries, which can be confused as basics, means it doesn't take many generations for skills to be forgotten. You may not need to, but it's a good idea to know how to bake bread, preserve fruit, make jam and soap, how to start a fire and build a simple shelter, and how to mend or make clothing. It's not a good idea for these foundational living skills and knowledge to be lost. To do so puts us closer to barbarianism than most people realize. In an age of fast fashion with clothing usually made from synthetics, you need to know the value of wool, cotton, linen, and other natural fabrics. Modern knitters and sewers usually do so for the pleasure of it, but it wasn't so long ago it was purely functional and everyone knew how to knit, including the menfolk and the children. If not, the family went cold. Now let's take this a step further. Have you assessed your own survival skills if there was an emergency, or even a basic power cut which lasts only a few days? What food supplies do you have? Based on what you have in the house now, how long would they last? What would you do about water? How would you cook, keep warm, and cope without electricity? What skills can you think of to brush up on? Can you bake bread? Foraging. Do you know your local plants, herbs, wild fruit and nuts? Do you keep your car filled with petrol, not letting it get low? Do you have other means of moving you or stuff, like an old bike, skateboard, trolley, a pram? Have you got a fishing rod? Can you do basic mending of clothes and fix things? Do you have how-to books so you don't have to rely on the internet? Is your first aid kit up to date? Can you grow a basic garden with homemade compost instead of shop-bought and artificial fertilizers and pesticides? I'm scratching the surface here of a big and interesting topic. Brushing up on these skills and learning others and teaching your children is arguably as important as teaching them maths and reading. As we have seen many times in history, civilizations go through growth but also breakdown. Recent history shows us nothing has changed. You will put some of the above into practice one day with no choice, or you can implement them in your life by choice. Even if it's just fun along the way, it's always a good time to take stock of your skill set. You may need it one day, and you will need to be ready. If this podcast has been helpful, please like and share it, and please subscribe to my channel. This increases the chance of other homeschoolers just like you seeing it. And please go to my website for resources, to contact me for consultations, or to speak. I'll see you next time.